Hi everyone, I'm Pallavi Rajankar, a counseling psychologist in training from Chennai. This video is all about mental health, of course, and we are in collaboration with Naicee, and they have sent us 5 questions that we're going to answer today. So let's get to it. So, the COVID-19 pandemic has been massive just in the scale of it, and we've seen over the past 2 months the devastating effect it has had on people's lives through the labor market, through the economy, on public health, and so much more. And we know that mental health is often dependent on our social and cultural factors. And so, as a consequence, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on people's mental health, not just in the immediate future, but in the long run as well. Right. So, one of the things I really like talking about is the mind and body connection. What our mind cannot communicate with us, a body will find a way to. What that essentially means is that if we're unable to get in touch directly with our emotions, then our bodies will find a way to get something to our attention through, say, a cold or a fever or whatever it is. Right. So, one of the biggest indicators that our mental health is not optimum is things like sleep and appetite. So, if we're sleeping too much or too little, or if we're eating too much or too little, or other things like mood, if we're experiencing low moods, or if there's a surge of energy, these are some of the biggest and more common indicators that there's something amiss with our mental health. Now, at this point, it's almost like a disclaimer where I want to say that if your body needs 10 hours of sleep instead of 7, that does not mean that there's something wrong with your mental health. It's all about knowing your patterns and looking at if something is amiss in those patterns and then gauging your own mental health. Okay, so moving on to our third question, which is what is anxiety and how is it different from stress? So there's a very fine line between anxiety and stress in that they're both emotional responses. Stress can be caused by an external stimulus or a trigger, which can be short term, like having a work deadline or having a fight with a loved one. Or it can be long term, where you can be suffering from a chronic illness and that can cause you stress. Now, stress can have mental and physical symptoms as well, like feeling irritable, feeling fatigued, experiencing digestive issues. These are some of the most common stress responses. Anxiety, on the other hand, is a persistent, constant worry about something, even in the absence of that stimulus. And some of the common symptoms are insomnia or racing thoughts, sweating, lack of concentration. And with mild anxiety and mild stress, the coping mechanisms are almost the same. Okay, so although the anxiety and stress levels have risen since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to remind ourselves that this is a completely normal and a very valid response to the situation. I think one of the large factors that's causing a lot of anxiety is uncertainty. My generation is especially supposed to have a really low uncertainty tolerance, which basically means that we feel like we have to be in control all of the time. And one way to deal with this is by increasing our uncertainty tolerance. And we can do this by learning to just be able to sit in our discomfort when things are actually outside of our control. Other than this, I've said this before, but there is no one way to deal with anxiety. Everyone experiences it differently and everyone copes with it differently. But there are some of the common ways of dealing with anxiety, especially at a time like this, which is looking for evidence on or information of how susceptible you actually are to the virus, if that's a concern for you. Incorporating self-care into your routine. Having a routine to begin with, because it kind of helps with a sense of normalcy in your life, and moving our bodies through exercise and play, because it's a good release and it helps get those endorphins going. Looking for the good in life always helps. Staying connected to your friends and family virtually if you can't be physically with them. Reaching out to a friend, and if things get really bad, then reaching out to a mental health professional is advised. Okay, so we are on our last question for today, which is how can we reach out and help family and friends if they are dealing with stress and anxiety right now? Right, so if you know someone who's having a hard time dealing with the situation, is experiencing anxiety and stress, then to be able to explicitly tell them that you are there for them and that you support them is a good place to start. I think validating their experience is also very important. So, even if you don't understand what someone is going through, just acknowledging that dealing with anxiety at a time like this, or even in general, must be difficult. Thirdly, celebrating their victories. If someone has taken an active step towards addressing the issue under the anxiety or the stress, then to be able to actually celebrate their victories is really important. And lastly, even in a situation like this, a lot of us might be tempted to ask questions or make a lot of suggestions on how to deal with it. But often this can be perceived by the other person as judgment or putting too much pressure. So it might be best to gauge the situation before doing those things. So yeah, that's it for today. We're done. Stay happy, stay safe, and I hope this video was helpful for you. See you.